Hello everyone and welcome to our TikTok live today on the Friday the 8th of April. It's National Zoo Lovers Day. Today is a celebration of zoos around the world and the good work that they do. And you might be thinking, well, the Big Cat Sanctuary, are you a zoo? We actually do operate under a zoo licence, but we are a sanctuary at the same time. Today we're going to be visiting some of our fan favourites of the sanctuary. So cats that you love to see. And we're starting with Luca today. We've got Abby behind the camera. It's
Hello,
just the two of us today, and we're starting with Luca. I'll take the camera now for you, Ab, so we can start.
Yeah.
And here is Luca. Luca is one of our newest residents. He's a little bit feisty. And tell us a little bit about Luca, Abs.
So Luca here, very feisty, as Harry said. He's 2.5 years old, and he very recently moved to us from Colchester Zoo just a few months ago. So it's taken him a little while to settle in, but we're finally starting to see some of his absolutely beautiful personality start shining through now. As you can see, he's very confident. He's come straight over to see us. He also knows I've got some very lovely food in this bucket for him as well, to give him a couple of little nice rewards to keep him nice and on camera for you guys to see him beautifully and up close. Hey, big man.
One of Luca's sort of most striking features, Abby, is his really long whiskers. And, you know, despite being an Amur leopard, you know, North Chinese tend to have longer whiskers. Do you think he's perhaps inherited a little bit of that?
I mean, you never really know. There's every possibility that somewhere along the line, a long time ago, North Chinese leopards and Amur leopards met, which may be where he got those really lovely long whiskers from. But it could also just be a very beautiful genetic trait from one of his very lucky ancestors, maybe his grandparents or his great-grandparents. But you're absolutely right. Normally it's your North Chinese leopard that have those really lovely long beautiful whiskers, but he's managed to kind of give our ones a run for their money, that's for sure.
And Luca came from our friends up at Colchester Zoo back in November last year.
He did.
He's taken a little while to settle, hasn't he?
He has, absolutely. He has moved from, of course, the place he grew up in, around his parents, with keepers that he's incredibly familiar with, so naturally it's going to be quite a big, scary process for him moving. But now we're really starting to see that more confident side of him shine through. He's starting to get used to a lot of us keepers as well, and he's a lot more confident in coming over and saying hello. And of course, over at Colchester, where he was born as part of the breeding programme for the Amur leopard. So one of our 4 pillars of ethos here at the Big Cat Sanctuary is actually breeding, conservation, education and welfare. So fitting in with that breeding side of things, it's in order to make sure we've got a really lovely backup population per se of this beautiful cat in captivity, so that should they ever need a reintroduction programme later on down the line, we've got some very beautiful genetics that we can send back out should it be needed. And that is exactly what Luca was born a part of. So there's every hope that he may well, of course, go on to breed in the future, and he's actually been recommended with our lovely lady Zizi as well. So fingers crossed they might have a little bit of success later on down the line. Hey, big man.
So we actually filmed the process of Luca coming to the sanctuary, so if you're interested, have a look on our Facebook, Instagram and YouTube channels. You'll be able to see the process from start to finish. It's quite interesting to see the behind the scenes of all the things that goes on in an animal move. So one of the things that people often get confused with, Abby, with leopards is the differences between leopards and jaguars. Do you mind sort of touching on that?
Yes, absolutely. So they do look strikingly similar. They're very similar colorations, the patterns are very similar as well. But one of the biggest differences is actually usually their size. Now Luca here is an incredibly large male, and we can fully appreciate now that he's right and up close just how big he actually is. But what you'll actually see is leopards are often much slimmer and they're a little bit more slender than your jaguar. Jaguars tend to be short and stocky, so they're kind of like the powerhouse of the big cat family. And then also their markings are one way that you can tell the difference between the two of them as well. Now you can see on Luca here, he's got some absolutely gorgeous rosettes, which are those round circles that he's got all around his back. Now if you have a look on jaguars, they've got exactly the same thing, but a jaguar will actually have spots inside of those rosettes as well. So there's just a couple of subtle differences. And you'll also notice leopards have much smaller heads and much longer tails as well, where these guys for the most part are going to be taking shelter up in the canopies away from those much larger predators, whereas jaguars are the apex predator in their natural habitat, unlike the leopards, so they don't have to hide up in trees the same way that these guys do.
Do you think while Luca's just sort of chilling out here, it'd be quite nice to touch on his personality a little bit? Obviously He does seem to be a little bit feisty, but there is certainly a soft and playful side to Luca that we've certainly witnessed so far, haven't we?
Absolutely, yes. Now that he is coming out of his shell a lot more, we've started to see him interact and play with some of the toys we're offering him. He particularly likes coffee as a smell, interestingly enough. So we've utilised that and we've put it on things like Hessian sacks and boxes. There's some nice big barrels for him. We've seen him have a really nice little play with some of those things as well. He's also incredibly relaxed. Of course, we're not seeing him very relaxed at the moment because he knows there's food around, but 90% of the time you will see him up on a platform soaking up what little sun we've got in the British April at the moment. And he's honestly just such a relaxed, playful, beautiful personality that we've welcomed here at the Big Cat Sanctuary, and we could not be happier. Hey, big man, want another one?
He's you're one of our newest residents, but he's turning into probably one of our most popular residents, particularly on our photography experiences. If you're interested in coming over to the Big Cat Sanctuary and taking some pictures of Luca with our amazing photography team, with Alma, Sarah and Chris, you can have a little look on our website. Or if you want to come and see him on a Big Cat experience, just visit our website as well and you can see him on a Big Cat encounter. It's just lovely to see him just up close today.
So giving us some very amazing noises here as well. Hey.
And those noises, they're, you know, what are they known as? They're sort of just little sort of grumbles.
Yeah, so these little grumbles and growls, in this sort of setting, it's going to be what we call anticipatory, a little bit of excitement as well. Of course, I have got food here with me, so this is a little bit of impatience. So he's kind of stood here telling me, right, yeah, okay, you can stop talking now and you can just give me the food, like that. So it's his way of showing impatience and excitement and anticipation. In other situations, stuff like this will also be a little bit of a warning, just letting him know that perhaps he's not best pleased with my company at the moment, but in this particular setting, this is impatience, excitement, anticipatory.
I know you said that Luca's quite a large Amur leopard, and we can sort of see his size a little bit now. He obviously does look absolutely huge. Is this sort of the, you know, you said he was 2 years old, is this sort of full size for him now, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. So this will be about as big as he gets. Here at the sanctuary, we are dedicated to making sure they get good physical exercise as well. So we're hoping we can build up his muscle, bulk a little bit more. But in a general size, this is about as big as he'll get, we think. Now, he is, of course, a very large male, but that's not necessarily abnormal for the Amur leopard subspecies as a whole. They are incredibly large. They're one of the bigger and slightly paler subspecies of leopard in the world. And they've also got some of the thickest and densest fur too. So naturally they are actually a lot bigger and stockier than, say, their African leopard cousins or their North Chinese leopard cousins, which are actually some of the smaller ones. So all in all, for a male Amur leopard, he's absolutely gorgeous. He's massive, which is exactly what we like.
See him rolling around. So that's that other side to Luca that you don't always see. He's he likes to give it large, but in fact he's just a little playful cat, really.
At 2.5, as you say, he's an adult, but he's still very much a baby at heart, as you can see. Very playful, big softie.
He's flirting with you to try and get some more food.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Lovely, Abby. I think we'll leave Luca now and move on to our next cat, but it's been great to see him. Obviously one of our newest residents. Haven't had to see too much of him as of yet, and there we go. So one last goodbye to Luca before we move on to Baikal. Lovely. Should we go up this bit here? So you guys might be wondering why we're wearing masks when we go into our standoff areas at the sanctuary. That's just because cats can be susceptible to COVID-19, and here at the sanctuary we just want to take as many extra precautions as we can to keep our cats safe. Obviously we have cats here that are a little bit older than other cats that could be in other zoos, and we just don't want to take any chances, do we, Abs?
No, absolutely. So you'll also see once we're going into gates and stuff like that, I'll be sanitising my hands and everything. So we're trying to make sure our cats are as safe as we can possibly keep them. Of course, we've got vaccines. We know exactly how it affects us. We just don't know enough about it from a cat's perspective. So naturally, we're doing everything we can to make sure we're keeping everyone safe.
And then just a little special bonus, there's Zizi, who Luca came to meet last year. Right, so we are now moving on to Baikal. Now Baikal has a special relationship with you, Abby, doesn't he? Because you train him.
I do, yes. So I've been training Baikal now for just over a year, and we're doing incredibly well. So the cats that we train as keepers, we often build up a very nice relationship with. It's a very trusting relationship, and it's a very positive one as well. So usually they're more than happy to come and say hello, and we often do the training just as a way of building up some different veterinary care for them as well. If you have a little look back on our TikTok page, there's a video of myself and Baikal doing some dental training as well. So he's trained to open his mouth so we can check his teeth for dental checks and everything like that. And at the moment I'm in the process of training him to take an anaesthetic potentially later on down the line as well. So it takes away that need for a dart gun and a lot of the stress that comes with it. So we'll see where he is. Baikal? Baikal? I think we're still in bed. I was just going to see if I can wake him up for everybody.
We'll just have a little watch from the door, see if he is. See if he is up and about. He
just
is there.
Here, look.
He's still waking up
So
himself, aren't he?
looks like he's just woken up. Baikal, what we got?
I suppose one of the things that keepers have to deal with that people sometimes don't think about is, getting the cats to cooperate with them, perhaps when they're feeling particularly sleepy or not quite awake yet.
Here he comes.
Here he is. He's not quite awake yet.
No, he's definitely.
Oh, there we
look.
go. Big stretch.
There he is. So yes, absolutely. Cooperation can be one of our biggest challenges as keepers. Of course, we can't make them do anything. We can only hope they're willing to cooperate. So for the most part, hello big man, what we got? Hello, there we are. Good boy. So let's see if we can relax a little bit, shall we? Come and take a little perch. Ooh. No, we're just going to stay there. That's absolutely fine. So again, this is exactly what we were seeing with Luca. However, instead of growling and grumbling and being a little bit more vocal, Baikal likes to moan and groan, and he likes to rub on the fence, and he likes to just make it very, very aware that he's very excited about the situation. Now, Baikal here is 12 years old, and he is the very beautiful white tiger that we've got living here with us at the sanctuary. And he's been living with us now permanently for around 4 years, and he is one of our biggest goofballs. He's got one of the most playful personalities of any cat on site. A particular favourite for him is his blue barrels. Now, as we had a little look through the window there, you might have seen behind him in the box was a big blue barrel. What he will do when he absolutely loves his toys is he will spend about 20 minutes drowning it in his pond, and when he's satisfied that it is thoroughly drowned, he'll then take it off to bed with him, and he sits there and he spoons it all night, and he has a really lovely partner in the form of a barrel or whatever toy it is that he decides he's had a lot of fun with that afternoon. Yeah.
So just while we've got Baikal here, tell us a little bit about his sort of backstory. I know he came from our sister site.
He did, absolutely. So he actually moved over to Paradise when he was quite young, only about 8 or 9 months old, and he was born over in France initially. Now, white tigers aren't actually something you'll ever see out in the wild. This particular coloration comes from a genetic mutation called leucism, so it's very similar to albinoism in the sense that they're meant to be orange. However, everything's brought up a few shades, so instead of orange he's white, instead of black stripes he's got brown stripes, and it just means that unfortunately they don't camouflage very well out in the wild. This particular white colour is only found in the Bengal subspecies of tiger, and you can imagine in the forests and the jungles where they're meant to survive, the white tiger will stick out like a sore thumb. He's got absolutely no camouflage to him. So prior, you will often see these guys advertised as things like snow tigers or Siberian tigers, and unfortunately that's simply just a money-making ploy. It's a way that unfortunately the less conservation driven side of things is going to try and make money off of these animals, unfortunately. So it's just purely for aesthetics that these guys have been bred in captivity, and of course with zoos focus now being predominantly on conservation, it's not actually a colour that we want to be breeding here. So when he moved over to our sister zoo Paradise, he simply moved in really simply moved in as an ambassador, so a fantastic educator where they could hopefully raise some much needed awareness surrounding white tigers. And he actually moved here to originally be a 6-month holiday resident, so he was only going to stay here for a short period of time. But it turned out that he settled down to life here at the Big Cat Sanctuary very, very well. He also became very good friends with his next door neighbour, Amasia, who's actually just up and about around the back there as well. And we just decided, considering what he is, the white tiger genetic, we can provide one-to-one education here on site a little bit better than you can in a public zoo setting. And we also found that, considering he settled down so well, it was a little bit unfair to then put him through another move. So he's become a much loved member of the Big Cat Sanctuary here with us. He's a firm favourite amongst guests. He's a firm favourite amongst quite a few of the keeping team as well. He's exactly the kind of personality that we absolutely love. Hey, big man.
He was a little bit rude then. Abby's not boring. You didn't need to yawn, Baikal.
I certainly hope I'm not boring everybody anyway.
You see here, so he knows, obviously because you train him, Abby, he sort of knows some of the behaviours that you like to see, so he's sort of replicating that now, isn't he?
Absolutely. Of course, I've not asked him to do anything. We're not officially doing a training session, but he does know that I'm normally the trainer, and he knows usually if he lays down perfectly like he is now, he will get a nice big reward as a result. And a lot of the training we do is all positive reinforcement, so similar in how you would clicker train dogs, for example. We use an exact kind of replica but with a whistle instead of a clicker, and so it's all positive reinforcement. He doesn't have to participate, but usually when there's food involved, he's quite happy to do absolutely anything we ask of him. Aren't you, big man?
I think it's good as well, you know, it really does sort of develop a bond between keeper and cat, which is important for their care, isn't it?
Absolutely. You'll find, you know, they've got a very good relationship with all of the keepers here on the team. They know who we are. You know, they know that we're going to bring them nice things, but it's always good to have at least one member of that team where they've got a slightly better relationship with, and it's usually that one member that will then be there through a lot of the scary experiences, but also through a lot of the good ones as well. And you'll find if it's that same person each time, they just build up that relationship. For example, with training at the moment, that I know I mentioned earlier, we're training him to take an intramuscular injection for an anaesthetic. Now, the last time he had an anaesthetic, it was with a dart gun, which of course isn't going to be massively painful, but it is going to sting. It's a little bit more stressful. Whereas if we can actually just administer that during a training session where it's all positive, it's much more relaxed, that's of course much better for his welfare. And it then of course builds up a nicer relationship with our vet as well, because they do all hate him and they all know who he is. So actually, if we can make them a little bit more relaxed around him as well, that's always a bonus. And having that one person there that they do a lot of that training with and a lot of that scary experience with makes it that little bit less scary for them on the actual day. So it's always good to have at least a trainer per cat if possible, but a lot of us take on 1 or 2 cats at a time. But you can see he's got a little bit of an Elvis impression, as we like to call it. Now, one of the main reasons that Baikal is going to be needing an anaesthetic fairly soon is because we're actually going to have his teeth looked at. So he has been trained to open his mouth for a dental check, so we can check the condition of his teeth. And we have noticed that there's been some deterioration recently, so we're just going to bring a dentist in to have a little look and fix up any problems that he has got. Thank you for that little demonstration, Baikal. And of course, he's broken one of his top canines, which is where that little Elvis impression comes from. So his lip just gets a little bit stuck, and it kind of causes that funny little facial expression. So hopefully it's not going to be too much longer, and then he'll be able to have those teeth nice and fixed, and his little smile will be perfect again.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Baikal, for being a good boy and having a little snack this afternoon. Without further ado, we're going to go to a cat now who is pretty much the polar opposite of Baikal in more or less every way. We're going to go see Nuwara.
Absolutely.
So let's go. Thank you very much, Baikal. That's a universal sign that we're all done. Lovely, and we'll make our way over to our smallest resident on site.
So Baikal, although he looks big, believe it or not, he is not our biggest cat on site. That title goes to one of our lions that we'll go and see in a little while. But he does weigh in at around 143 kilograms, so he's still an incredibly large cat, and he is the biggest tiger we've got living here with us at the moment. And Harry isn't joking when he says that Nuwara is the complete polar opposite of Baikal that we've just seen. She is well, I don't want to spoil the surprise. You'll see what it's like day to day for us here. We don't, as Harry said earlier, we don't operate in the same ways that a public zoo will. We do offer more of a private tour. So if you do come and visit us here at the sanctuary, this is very much what you can look forward to. Really nice, quiet, peaceful sanctuary where a lot of the cats, 9 times out of 10, are out on their platforms, nice and relaxed and waiting for everybody to come and say hello.
It's just the ideal environment for cats, really, isn't it? You keep them nice and quiet, happy and healthy, well
Absolutely.
fed.
Absolutely.
We've got a little griffin here who's being very cheeky underneath here. Could you see him? It's Griffin our caracal. He's spotted Abby, and he's Griffin's known for playing hide and seek, isn't he, with the the staff. You're such a cheeky boy, Griffin. Lovely, but we're going to see his next door neighbour now. Time for her.
So Nuwara here, she's actually quite a rare sight, both for members of the public and for keepers as well. Now,
Hoping, I think I've just seen her.
so the main reason she is such a rare sight, Nuwara, is because this lovely lady is actually nocturnal. So she only really comes out of an evening when, of course, all of us keepers are well tucked up in bed by that point. Nuwara, come on in.
She's coming. We can see her face.
Come on then. And you can also imagine why she's such a rare sight. Because not only is she nocturnal, she is the smallest cat that we've actually got living here with us at the sanctuary at the moment. Now, in comparison to Baikal's whopping 143 kilos that I mentioned, little Nuwara here weighs in at 1.3 kilograms. So she's absolutely tiny. And she is the smallest cat that we've got here on site. And she is the smallest cat species on the planet. And she's native to Sri Lanka and a small part of India as well. Hello, lady.
It's quite difficult to sort of put into perspective how small she is, you know, through the screen. But, you know, if you were to liken her to something, maybe a bag of sugar might be a fair comparison.
Absolutely. Bag of sugar weight-wise, think along the lines of grey squirrel size-wise. So they're absolutely tiny little cats. And they are specifically designed to stay up in the canopies around 80% of the time. And that is actually where they got that beautiful name from, the rusty spotted cat. Of course, that lovely rusty colour along her back there that you can see beautifully is going to help her camouflage on the forest floors of Sri Lanka around the kind of leaf litter, the bark that's going to be along the floor. And then actually, as you look up, when she's spending a lot more of her time, you can see that lovely spotty belly that she's got. And that is actually designed to replicate the mottled sunlight that will come through the treetops. So any predators that then look up are not necessarily going to be able to see her straight away. So they're very good at hiding almost in plain sight. And so with her being nocturnal, and of course they are semi-arboreal, as we say, so she does spend around 80% of her time up in the treetops, you can imagine it's actually very hard to find them, both in captivity and out in the wild. Now, these guys are found throughout zoos across the world, but very rarely there is anyone lucky enough to catch a glimpse. And as keepers, we only get to see her when we're bringing stuff like her dinner or her breakfast along with us as well. So that's normally the only time we'll get to see her too. And what we've got for her now is just a simple and easy tongue feed, but just next to her here you can see the remnants of breakfast. So this is a puzzle feeder, so it's something that we will use for the cats to keep their brains mentally stimulated. So this one's quite a simple one. You can actually buy this for domestic cats and dogs online, and we can just hide little bits of her food behind those little sliding doors. And it's a little bit more of a mental challenge for her. We're not allowed to feed these cats live prey, so we actually have to get a little bit more creative when it comes to strategizing hunts and things like that for them instead. So sometimes it might be in a puzzle feeder, sometimes we might actually scatter it around her enclosure, we may hang it up so she's got a little bit more physical exercise to do. There's lots of different ways we can do it, but she's got a lovely little tongue feed. Nice and easy.
We also do put these things on our Amazon wish list. So should you want to make a donation and buy something from our wish list, you can see that. Just type in the Big Cat Sanctuary wish list and you'll find that there. So with Nuwara as well, she's sort of known for being quite feisty, so to speak. Why do you think that is?
Now, I'm sure you've heard just how feisty she is in her growling, and you've seen how grabby she is with her hands as well. Now, the main reason she is as feisty as she is because she's actually one of the smallest predators in her natural habitat. So it's very, very beneficial for her to try and make herself sound as big and scary as she possibly can. And we like to call this small cat syndrome. So similar how small dog breeds, for example, generally tend to be a little bit more vocal than other larger dog breeds. These guys are no exception. So it's a way for her to make herself as big and scary as possible to anything potentially that might see her as a source of food, which could of course be most things that are living out in Sri Lanka. Most importantly, for example, you've got birds of prey, you've got reptiles, you've got other cat species out there as well, such as Sri Lankan leopards that are potentially going to be up in the canopies alongside them. So they've got lots and lots of possible predators. So being scary is the best form of defense that she's got. Now, they don't tend to have a huge idea of how small they are. These guys out in the wild have actually been seen hanging off the necks of things like cattle, because they think they might actually be able to stand a chance of taking down a cow. Now, you can imagine a cat the size of a squirrel is not going to have a huge amount of luck. But what they lack in size, they more than make up for in attitude. Isn't that right, little lady?
And I imagine their metabolism must be quite high, so part of the care here at the sanctuary is to feed them twice a day. So obviously we're here in the evening, but she's already been fed today in the morning.
Yes, absolutely. So she'll get 2 meals a day, and we always make sure, as I say, that one's a nice easy one like this, one's enrichment, and we'll give her around 90 grams of food a day, and that is enough to keep little Nuwara here nice and sustained. And of course every cat will have a slightly different metabolism, so she's very small, she's going to hunt little and often, so therefore she needs little and often meals here in captivity, unlike her bigger counterparts such as lions and tigers that are going to be naturally gorge feeders. So they will go out and hunt something really nice and big. They would stuff themselves silly and sleep it off for a few days. So we naturally don't feed all of our big cats here every single day.
Lovely. Just got a few bits of food left. A nice little evening meal.
Oh, there we are. Don't
There
take
we
the
go.
thumbs with you. You missed a bit. There we are.
We've just launched our TikTok shop, everyone. So if you're interested in supporting the sanctuary, please hop along to our profile and have a little look through some of the items that we've got on there. Anything that you do purchase goes directly towards looking after the beautiful cats here at the Big Cat Sanctuary. So head on over, have a little look, see if there's anything that takes your fancy, and do your bit to help look after cats and your bit for conservation and action as well.
There we are.
You can see we've there's some feathers on that little bit of meat that you gave her there, Abby. You know, you
Absolutely.
keep the feathers on, yeah?
Yep. So we try and feed these guys as natural as possible. So small cat species get whole prey. So for example, today she's got quail. Sometimes we might feed her mice or rats or chicks, and we'll always make sure she gets the entire animal. We don't pluck it, we don't take out any of the insides either. The whole thing is there, and it just means there's enough kind of natural roughage to help it keep their digestive systems really nice and healthy, and of course it's going to help to keep their teeth clean going forward as well. Now we've got one last big bit for her, which she's probably going to vanish with once she's had it, and you can hear that she knows exactly what
And that's a tactic in the wild, isn't it? To, you know, sort of secure the prey.
Absolutely.
So they and secure the feed pretty much.
Absolutely. So it's going to be her natural instinct to take that food somewhere that we possibly aren't going to be able to take it away from her. And that is exactly what you will see out in the wild as well. They'll take their food somewhere nice and hidden, whether that's a burrow for them out in the wild, whether that's back up into the treetops. They have an incredibly varied diet in the wild. They will often hunt anything from rodents and small mammals down on the ground, all the way to birds' eggs up in the canopies, reptiles, amphibians, and even insects and bugs. So moths, butterflies, they'll dig around for grubs and insects on the forest floor. So they've got such a wide variety of diets that it's important that we make sure we're giving her a variety here as well, which is why we of course keep everything on it. It's as natural as we can give it to them, and of course we try and give her as much variety too. There was a time we tried to feed her insects and bugs, because we can actually feed those animals live as they are invertebrate, but she very quickly sent the rest of the keepers to catch the locust we put in. She decided that wasn't quite an enrichment feed she wanted to partake in, so we've not tried that since. She much prefers the nice juicy quail that we that we tend to keep on stock for her.
Lovely. Just as we're walking along, just want to say thank you for joining us on TikTok Live today on National Zoo Lovers Day. It's a day to celebrate zoos, good zoos around the world that do their bit to look after the animals in the best possible way and also help conservation in action. and it's, you know, National Zoo Lovers Day. So Abs, why do you love working for the sanctuary and looking after these animals?
It's such a big passion for me, animal care, and of course the conservation side of things as well. And being a zookeeper, it really gives me that fantastic level of both, because of course without zoos, conservation just simply doesn't exist. So it's a really vital part of making sure these endangered species stay as safe as possible out in the wild, and being a keeper just allows me to have that animal care side of things, but still gives me the opportunity to express my passion for conservation as well. So it's absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you. And speaking of which, we've got some more of the zookeepers here doing a great job looking after the animals. So, Abby, we're now going to see Kasanga, who is, again, another polar opposite of who we've just met, Nuwara.
Absolutely. So we just met the smallest cat on site, which is Nuwara. She is, of course, the Sri Lankan rusty spotted cat. And now we've made our way to the biggest cat on site. And here we have got Kasanga. So Kasanga is an African lion. Kasanga! And here he comes.
Here he comes.
So Kasanga here is 12 years old, and he is one of our circus rescues that we've got here at the Big Cat Sanctuary. Now, of course, we've met Luca, who's come from a breeding background, and he's part of a breeding program. We've met Baikal, who is simply just an ambassador and an educator here at the Big Cat Sanctuary. We've met Nuwara, who again is another one of our educators and ambassadors, and now we've got a slightly different background to meet. So he was actually born into the Great British Circus, and around the time that opinions on circuses started to change in the UK, he was moved over to the Netherlands. Now, Kasanga has a slightly shorter attention span than some cats, and so he didn't massively respond well to a lot of the training that was done. Now, none of it, as far as we know, was negative. It was all positive, but he just has a little bit of a short attention span sometimes. And so it was decided that he would move over to a collection called Woburn Safari Park instead. So we teamed up with them to raise the funding to bring him back over to the UK. And so initially he moved there for a few months with a pride of 9 very beautiful lionesses, and they felt actually moving into a dominant role would be fantastic for Kasanga, being a male lion, exactly what he needed to start settling in to that kind of life that you would expect a male lion to lead. However, he is hand-reared, and he actually grew up in a circus environment, so he's not really had a huge amount of experience living amongst a pride of cats, which is actually what we best know lions to be doing. And so he had a fair few disagreements with the ladies that he lived with, and they actually ended up kicking him out of the pride because he wasn't doing a good enough job. So naturally, he moved here with us instead, where he is just enjoying the solitary lifestyle here at the sanctuary. Hey, big man.
You know, he's known as the Disney lion, isn't he? Because his face is almost just so perfect. He's very excited about the food. And do you think that's probably, his face is so perfect because he hasn't really had that conflict or anything to sort of battle against? You know, he hasn't got any of the nicks and scratches that you'd associate.
Absolutely, that's going to be a big factor of it, because of course even in captive collections in zoos you are still going to see male lions that are looking quite rough and ready. They're not going to look quite as pristine as you might expect them to look in captivity, because even amongst a successful pride dynamic, every family has its arguments, and these guys are going to be no exception. And of course, because he's not necessarily had that interaction, he's very pristine. He's got a very beautiful face on him, not a scratch or a scar to be seen anywhere. And so, as you say, the Disney lion nickname suits him incredibly well.
Can I just ask why you're getting up on his back feet there? Because I'm sure the audience at home just want to know a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So, of course, some of the most vital areas of these cats are on their underbellies, and that's one of the places that they're going to want to keep nice and safe out in the wild. It's one place that they're not naturally going to show us willingly. So one way that we can actually have a really nice look at their underbelly is just by bringing them up onto their back legs. And of course, we don't get to see the base of their paw pads or anything like that either, a huge amount. So again, we can bring them up, we can get a really nice look at their paw pads, on their bellies, make sure everything's okay and in good condition, and give them a general thorough health check as we do it. And doing this is actually how we discovered that one of our snow leopards was pregnant, because we could actually start to see where she was plucking the fur around her teats in readiness for of course producing the milk and lactating, and we could of course see that lovely bulging belly that comes with a litter of cubs as well. So it's a very effective way for us to health check the cats here. Of course we can't make them do it. Sometimes they sit on the floor and they look up at the bit of food and they say, not today, thank you. But usually if they're getting a nice positive reward, they're more than happy to oblige. Okay.
Has he got one last bit of food?
Yep, so we've got one last piece of food for him. Now Kasanga here, when he first arrived, we actually kind of put him as the face of our lion conservation campaign named Project Lion, and that actually helped us raise around £40,000 for African lion conservation over in South Africa, which is absolutely fantastic. And we were able to donate a lot of that to different areas of funding, one of which in particular focused on African lion collaring, which is where farmers are given radio tracking devices, and then predators such as lions, leopards and sometimes cheetahs as well are fitted with a radio collar, and those radio collars activate a beep. So the farmers know when there are predators near their livestock, which is of course going to be one of the biggest areas of conflict for lions and farmers out in the wild. And so we were able to donate more radio collars so that rangers had a more accurate idea of where all of the prides of lions are going to be living, specifically on a reserve called Alpejta Conservancy is one of the biggest ones that we support. In fact, a team of us are going out there in September to see some of the fantastic work we've been able to donate towards as well. And another one of course is going to be education. Again, another really important pillar for us here at the Big Cat Sanctuary is education, and that's exactly why we do these TikTok lives as well. Of course, we know not everyone can come and see us here at the Big Cat Sanctuary, so these lives allow us to give a little bit more of an insight from an education perspective as to what goes on behind the scenes of conservation in captivity. And of course we were able to donate towards different universities and schools over in Africa to make the younger generations just as passionate about looking after these animals going forward as we are today, because of course children and the younger generations, they're going to be the conservationists of tomorrow when we're no longer here to do it. So it's really, really important to us to support local communities and their schools and their education as well. So little Kasanga, well I say little Kasanga, big Kasanga has been a fantastic ambassador, and hopefully he continues to do just that. But we've got one more bit for him. One
last bit.
So we'll stop having him waiting. There we are, big boy.
Good lad.
All done now.
Lovely. And that's the universal sign of we're all done,
all
just
done.
the hands up. So
All
he knows
finished.
now. He knows now that it's finished.
You can straight away see that change of behaviour. He's clocked, all right, okay, there's nothing left.
And what he'll probably do now is go and sleep for the rest of the day, because that's what African lions do, isn't it?
Absolutely. Famous for sleeping for about 16 to 20 hours a day.
Lovely, Abby. Well, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for National Zoo Lovers Day. Thank you for joining us on TikTok. It's been great to have you. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. And hopefully we'll see you again soon for another TikTok Live. Thank you.